pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Madam Clerk, will you get a roll call vote, please?
Harkness,
Here.
Lucas, Cooper, Milton,
Here.
Denham, Scholes,
Here.
Williams.
Present.
Your Honor, you have a quorum.
So Ruth is or is not online?
We do not have anyone virtually attending at this moment.
Okay. So we're going to continue discussion on the city with its 2027 legislative priorities with a report from Alex.
Good evening, Mayor and Board. As you mentioned, this is a continuation of the study session for the city's state and local legislative priorities. I've updated the PowerPoint slide from our last meeting where a couple of additional ideas have been discussed. Thing that's changed the most is the timeline below. Later tonight, you'll hear an update on the 2026 legislative state session from Barjay & Associates. Chris Rope, who's the city's lobbyist, he'll be attending as part of our regularly scheduled agenda item to brief the board on this. Then, of course, just a couple deadlines there regarding December 1st of 2026 is the pre-filing of bills, and looking for your guidance tonight on a path forward on approving these items into a formal resolution. We're going to go ahead and skip through the state priorities as we discussed that at the last meeting, and we'll move to the local legislative priorities. Tonight's conversation, we've updated the PowerPoint slides to include a couple of the items that were mentioned not only at the last session, but also throughout the course of the last couple weeks. You as a board and the mayor may decide to adopt a formal list of local legislative ordinance priorities for 2026 and 2027, similar to what you're doing for the state priorities. Proposed timeline is as follows. From tonight until August 11th, which is tonight, the board and mayor have developed a list of local priorities and submitted those to city administration. We've compiled those. If tonight's conversation runs long, you also have the opportunity on August 25th to also have a study session to further the discussion, with hopefully on September 8th having a formal adoption of the 2026-2027 city legislative priorities. Again, these local priorities would be kind of a blueprint and a guide print for what this board seeks to accomplish in the 2026-2027 year. Similar to last meeting, I'd be happy to turn it over to the Board of Aldermen. A number of you submitted various ideas, and I'd like to reserve the time for you all to explain your ideas and some of the context and work that you've put into this. So at this time, kick it over to the Board of Aldermen for those that submitted items, particularly regarding the 7-year capital plan. Thank you.
Well, one item that has come up since our last meeting is I'd like to revisit making Branson Landing an entertainment zone. It's an item that was brought up and approved by the Board of Aldermen in 2018, and it was discussed, approved, and voted on by the board. And that would require some community involvement and get their input. And then if it's approved by this board, which I would fully support, then it would go up to Jeff City for approval. So I think we need to start that at a local level and then move it up to the state level. So I don't know if any alderman has any experience or understanding of what that previous entertainment zone was for Branson Landing.
Yeah, basically, it was approved for open carry down there, and I'm in favor of it when we get to there and we just add it to our legislative priorities, because really at the end of the day, it's the governor who signs it, and at that time, the governor that was in place was just not really in favor of those types of things, so he shot it down. But the city of Branson was in favor of it at that time.
Yeah, I would just encourage getting our public, making that a public announcement and getting their input on this. Glenn, anything? Parks. Are you familiar with it at all?
I've heard about it, Mayor, and at the surface level, talking to some other community members, there's a desire to explore that because, again, as we discuss the future of Branson, there's a way to continue to modernize, but do it safely and responsibly. Because if you're the parent and you're going to a sports event at the convention center and you want to go from point A to point B, we tend to think the worst of those things usually, or at least at the surface level, but there's opportunities there, so I don't think it's out of line to explore it. And most importantly, community buy-in is going to be most important before we launch it up to Jeff City.
Glenn?
We met with the marketing director for the landing to discuss this. Alderman Lucas and I, since it's in our ward, they asked for a meeting a few weeks ago. And they had a preliminary presentation prepared. So I think if we want to advance this, the first step would be for them, invite them to do their presentation so the public's aware of what they're talking about and how they propose on handling it. And I think we also have to be considerate of the residents in that district too, in terms of what the plan is and what the security will be and all the other issues around it. But I think they're prepared to do that. I think they're just about ready. So if we want to add it to the list and invite them to make their presentation, I think that would be good.
Okay. So Kathy, would you do that? Okay. So what other items we need to talk about?
This is really an opportunity, I think, for the aldermen who submitted items to maybe discuss those items amongst their colleagues. Similar to what we did last time. We were obviously a critical part of administration to gather and collate those ideas and get them into this format. But this is really the board's opportunity to champion these and discuss these amongst the colleagues and ultimately direct city administration into what items should move forward into a resolution.
Okay, well, item number 1, the rolling 7-year capital plan. As I recall, I thought we agreed to push that off until January 1. Kathy?
You're correct, Mayor. That was the direction that was given to us at a previous board meeting. What we've done is kind of created more of a hybrid approach to what Alderman Schultz was looking for to begin with, and then what the direction was we got from the board. And to do that, we're coming forward with, you guys will all see this as part of the budget conversations coming up, where we're going to incorporate the 7-year capital planning into the 2027 budget year. And so we've also added another full day into the budget calendar timeline to make sure that there's one day set aside to just have conversations about capital. And I think that'll give more elbow room, right, to have conversations about capital sooner than what we thought, having to wait until after the first of the year. So we found a nice marriage there.
Okay, so do we want to discuss that? I mean, I'm just asking because it's number 1 on the list. Hearing none, you want to move on to number 2?
I don't know if it's helpful. I guess I can read these. I don't know if, okay.
Yeah.
Second item that aldermen submitted was to establish advisory committees for hospitality and for developers builders. Essentially create 3 standing advisory groups consisting of a marketing oversight committee, a hospitality tourism advisory committee, and a developer builder advisory committee. I don't know if any of the aldermen who championed this idea would like to
Who
provide
brought
more
that
color on
item
it.
up?
I leaned into it. So part of the thought process here, starting with the first one, Marketing Oversight Committee, there's value, right, with tourism tax and having just a layer of oversight and expertise from community leaders when it comes to how do you implement those funds. I think our neighbors at the CVB and TCED do a really good job with this, and they have a very similar structure. Being that those are 2 different taxes, I just thought it would be a good idea to just entertain the discussion on, is there a value on having a marketing oversight committee for city marketing funds? And then on from there, the Hospitality Tourism Advisory Committee, talking with groups like BALA, there's a value to the amount of hotel rooms and restaurants and tourism attractions of, those people coming together as a committee to provide guidance and recommendations on things that would help their industry, since 85% of our revenue is tourism. And then the Developer Builder Advisory Committee, I think we already kind of touched on this quite a bit during the Chamber of Commerce resolution, but the idea is still the same. Is that a method that we want to use to listen to that particular group, or do we want to go a different path? So each one of those, the idea was to add some extra color to the picture from community, looking to see if anybody else is supportive of that, had those experiences. I know I have when I was soliciting feedback for this process, and so I thought that would be worthwhile to have a discussion about.
Okay, well, let's have a discussion. So, Alex, what are you thinking on the Marketing Oversight Committee? Is that a city committee?
So again, we would, when you look at these, I know when we talked about the developer builder one, for example, is it going to be a city committee? There's certain thresholds that have to be met. Would we meet those thresholds? Would we get the attendance that you need? Because I know that we've even off-ramped some committees here recently, so I understand that. If the outputs from these committees aren't going to be there, then I wouldn't be supportive of it, because it's not going to accomplish the goal. The most important one to me on there of the three is the Marketing Oversight Committee, just because that's probably, in my opinion, our area where we're maybe exposed the most for having extra eyeballs on tourism marketing funds. The other two is just from just talking to colleagues and talking to business owners within those sectors. So if I could make a push for any one of them specifically, I think there's great value in a Marketing Oversight Committee that would be a city-run outfit, just simply because of the amount of money that's involved and the help that will help provide the people that are marketing this destination, because you're using approximately $14 million between two different areas to drive people to Branson. So I feel like that's something we could maybe go after if staff's supportive of it. That's obviously important as well. I could think it's a good idea, but if you're saying it's not practical, then this is a group discussion among the electeds, but it also needs to be the people that are going to be putting it into action as well. So I don't know if staff has any comments or reservations about any one of those three particularly, but I would like to try to drive the Marketing Oversight Committee discussion if it's possible.
Well, the Marketing Oversight Committee, yeah, we don't have anything to do with the 14 million, right? The city's portion of that is 3 million or so.
Correct. It's just done in conjunction, but nonetheless, I would still say, even though it's not the TCED who's providing the majority of that, we understand that collectively both groups have talked about the importance of side-by-side budgets and utilizing those funds to help be most effective. I understand that we don't control the whole thing, but for our portion, there's value there, I think, to help give oversight of marketing funds, tourism tax marketing funds.
Okay, because, and I'm open for new ideas. So our current structure is TCED is the one that runs the lion's share of these funds, and they get input and they do their studies. And so and then the CVB in our chamber, they have the expertise in marketing, and I don't know how much the Board of Aldermen want to provide direction of, I don't know if you're looking at specific line items, like how much should go into TV and how much should go into online. I'm not sure what level we want the city to be involved. In the past, cities be involved at a higher level. They've provided direction, and we've allowed the CVB and TCD to fill in those gaps. So again, I'm just looking for, if this is a oversight committee that is a city committee, who would be on that committee and what would the objectives be?
No, it's fair. And I guess my follow-up question is how would you describe the current process right now? Because we have the responsibility over those funds, and the Branson, City of Branson's tourism tax marketing funds, the 1%. How do you describe that process right now? Like, in the absence of that committee, Mayor, what do you understand to be the process on how those funds are overseen before it goes to the TCED, or the Explore Branson for execution?
Did you want it, Kathy?
Thank you, Mayor. Well, I will share with you my personal feeling on this, and, well, not just personal, professional on this. I think the way it's been working with one marketing oversight committee at the TCED, the city, I feel, has been pretty well represented there by our TCED representatives that the city puts onto that committee. There's a whole lot of cooks in the marketing kitchen in Branson, to say it really nicely. And the only thing that would give me a little bit of worry about creating our own, over our own little pot compared to the big Lions pot that's at TCED, is that they might start to come at odds with each other, and then instead of pooling our resources to fully leverage all of those dollars together and more buying power and the same direction and the thematics and content, et cetera, you risk perhaps fracturing that. Would be the only concern I would have. And I'm basing this off of maybe about 3 years ago in some of the conversations where there was a push at the time, the city should get control over their own funds and do it separate from TCED. And I was like, I don't understand the logic behind that when we can pool our resources and have bigger buying power. So but again, you're probably more exposed, you have been more exposed to those meetings than I have been, but I felt like from my chair, that the way we've got it now with one marketing oversight committee, what is there, like 10, 12 people on that committee? I don't know who's left to pick from in the city that could even serve on a city one. But I kind of feel like I'm like, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. I don't feel like it's broke, but there might be other opinions here. So I kind of like the way it's working. And if I could just comment on the other two. Again, I'm always happy to have meetings with folks. I'm just trying to think of structure, and are we then starting to sideline the role that the chambers offered to step into to help facilitate, or Baja might be willing to step into to facilitate conversations of a more regular nature with those interested special interest groups? Just a thought.
No, I appreciate that feedback. Again, if there's a way, how would you plainly explain the process of where the funding, we know it goes to Explore Branson, and they're doing a great job with that. Someone has to approve it. We appropriate it. We have a fiduciary responsibility over our City of Branson funds. Who or what is the process for it going from point A to being sent to the contractor?
Gotcha, thank you. And I'm sorry, I think I skirted around that, didn't mean to. I'm actually, between myself and Allison in our finance department, we've got the budget that they've set up for us. We make sure that the expenditures that they're asking for reimbursements on are directly tied back to those line items in the budget, and then we approve them accordingly. So there's oversight from our finance department and for me as well.
Thank you.
Do we have anybody on the TCED Marketing Oversight Committee?
We have 3 members. I'm sorry, they're on the TCD.
What about on the Marketing
The
Oversight Committee of that?
TCD board has their own policy of how they choose and select members to be on their MOC. So, sure. go
I
ahead.
think on this one, on the marketing one, I think what would be helpful for us to understand the dynamics here would be a joint meeting with the Board of Aldermen and our representatives on the TCED board to get the perspective from their side, because they're dealing with it at a larger volume than we are. And I know they're also, have issues in front of them that they'd probably also like to hear some perspective from city in some official capacity since they represent the city. So I'd like to propose maybe one of our upcoming special meetings. I know we got a lot of stuff going on, but one of our upcoming special meetings, we specifically invite our TCED city representatives to sit with the board and just have that general discussion as to how would we best move forward, what issues are they facing that they want input on, kind of those kind of things. I think that would add a lot of color to this discussion.
I would welcome that very much. Kathy, could you arrange that?
I am happy to do that, and I also want to make a public reminder to our TCED appointees that if there are concerns or challenges that they're having in their role serving on that board, and if they feel the city isn't being appropriately addressed or handled, those issues, they need to make us aware of those ASAP. So yeah, I will certainly work to facilitate that.
On the other agenda item, the hospitality tourism, maybe we're at the point that we should do something similar to what we did with the chamber and say that since Baja is expanding their reach, Bala is expanding their reach to Baja, that maybe they'd be an appropriate group, and we'd certainly have to have a discussion with them to say, do they want to formally advance an agenda of items for the city to consider from a legislative perspective in the same fashion that the chamber did? And let it be brought forward, and then we can decide what the deposition of that list would be.
Yeah, and a couple months ago, Baja, they've invited me to their board of director meetings to include the city with some of their overall discussions now.
Yeah, so you may want to bring this up with them. We also meet with them with their legislative affairs committee, and so we can bring it up at that level too.
Okay? So then, Alex, are you okay with where we are with these three committee topics?
I think it makes good sense. We've got the right people in place. If we can just get a couple more touch points, whatever they look like, just to clear some of the air on like where, how the process flows, because you know how that goes. There's questions. People may not fully understand what the funds are, what they're allowed to be spent on, and so the MOC doesn't always dive into that. As a former city representative on the TCED, just take it from me, there's some value in adding more information for everybody, and if we can accomplish that, then I don't think we need to create more groups after the discussion.
Great. So item number 3.
Item number 3 that was submitted was to review water sewer rate performance for 2026 in quarter 1 and 2. Review this water and sewer rate performance, the capital needs, the debt capacity, and grant strategy before adding new applications. I'd, of course, welcome to turn over to the Alderman.
Who brought that?
I think I brought that one
Okay,
up.
Glenn.
So, last year we approved a rate increase after a lot of discussion and a couple of meetings. There's new water meters in place that have different dynamics. And the proposal here is just before we get into the depths of budget processes, it might be nice to have an update from water sewer as to how this is all landing now that these things have started to change, to see is the rate model performing in the fashion that we thought it would, better, worse, and so on. And there were also, as I recall, a significant number of capital expenditures that were carried forward from the prior year onto this year's plan that should now be spent based on the conversation at the beginning of the year, at the end of last year. And it would be helpful, I think, to have that update again prior to getting into the specifics of the budget process, just because it's such a large organization and so many moving parts.
Sure. So I see Kendall here. Kendall, you can set up a time to update the board and answer these questions that Alderman Schultz is asking.
Would an agenda item satisfy you, Mayor, that request? Maybe Kendall in a future meeting can come and provide
Yes.
some updates.
Okay.
And I think we've got to let him kind of decide when, because I know they're just finishing up the meter rollouts, and that'll have an impact on some of the reporting. So, they can tell us when they want to do that report, but hopefully prior to budget.
No. Yeah, not now, or this meeting will last for a week. It's okay.
The next item on the list submitted by Alderman were to eliminate outdated or unnecessary business license requirements, including workers' comp documentation where not legally required.
Who brought this forward?
I think I added this one, others may have contributed to it, but I have noticed both as a business license holder and in talking with other people that even after all the nice changes that were done on the website and the workflow and all that, that there's still just some basic process things that we should look at to see are they really applicable. For instance, the issue of workers' compensation requirements to get a business license can be very confusing, especially for a small business that doesn't require a workman's comp. Those kind of things. The other thing I've heard more recently is the question of when a business is sold and the business license, the new owner needs to get a business license, the issue of having to repeat a safety inspection just because the business sold seems to be unnecessarily burdensome. There may be a parallel component to that. I'm not sure about this. If a hotel sells or a restaurant sells, we might be triggering a health inspection too, which, there might be underlying reasons that I'm not aware of, but on the surface, it just seems like simply changing the owner doesn't really change that building, the infrastructure, the business per se, and couldn't we just wait till the next scheduled update to those two processes? So just those kind of things to make our business licensing a little bit easier for the people without hurting the city.
Okay, yeah, and I can see that. I see it as two different topics, because the workman's comp, who would be here to address that, Kathy?
I can,
Who said I can?
well, I just had a comment.
Oh, go ahead, Ashley.
I know that Alderman Williams and I both have individually been approached with different circumstances on this, but I think if I'm understanding this outside of the business, that, like you said, it's definitely two different topics. So this one, more like your sole proprietors for your backflow prevention workers, for your contractors that don't have employees under them. When you apply for a business license and work comp is required, those businesses are not legally required to have work comp. And so if the city requires it, but they don't legally have to have it, they can't, there's an objection there to getting their business license. And that's part of what we just want to clean up.
I think that's easy to do. And the work comp, who handles that here?
I actually can answer that question. So we did help, thank you, Alderwoman Hawkins, for bringing that forward. I know we did make some changes earlier this year to help streamline, especially if you're a sole proprietor, LLC, and some of those changes. I think to Glenn's question about the business license and chain of ownership, I think of lodging, for instance, that's an annual license, right? And I think we've been flexible with that in the past, but that's whether that's a code in Chapter 22 for business licenses or whether that's a process, we'll definitely look into that.
Yeah, that's a great idea. I still don't know for workman's comp. Is that, Haley, are you smiling back there?
Licensing is actually handled through planning department for workman's comp.
Okay.
And I'd go so far, and I'm sure I can be educated on this, but I'd go so far as to say, I don't see what workman's comp has to do with the city license.
Okay, and I think that when a business is licensed in the city, that when a consumer hires that business, I think having a city business license represents a couple things. And they're minimal now, they used to represent more. But the fact that the person they're hiring has insurance, that's gonna go work on their property, that's what we're talking about is workman's comp.
Yeah, that's one of many insurances that a
Yeah.
consumer would be concerned about.
That's right,
Mr. Mayor?
yes.
So I know you understand work comp, but as from a sole proprietor perspective, work comp covers if you have employees that you pay on payroll, right? It does not cover anything else. So if there's an injury on the job for that employee, but if you don't have employees, your work comp's not doing anything. General liability now is what I would be in agreement that every single business license owner should absolutely have inside the city limits at Branson.
So does our business license not require?
It requires general liability,
Okay.
absolutely. So you have to show that. The question here is the work comp, because you have people that are sole proprietors, no employees, and it's requiring them to have work comp, which doesn't make sense. So then they're buying ghost policies. They're spending money on a policy that does nothing other than shows a piece of paper to the city and the planning department that they have insurance that they don't need. And so it's costing our very small business owners and our sole proprietors money that they legally, from a legal standpoint, shouldn't be spending because they don't have to have that insurance.
Okay,
Mr. Mayor,
yes. Hi, Artie.
with respect to work comp, I think we're kind of getting into a cloudy area here because a consumer, if they hire a contractor, would require liability insurance on the part of the contractor. If that contractor is a sole proprietor with no employees, and that contractor is injured on a job site at a residence or a business, they can file a suit for physical injuries against the customer, which should in fact be covered by work comp.
Artie, work comp never covers the owner of the business, just for clarification. So that sole proprietor would still not be covered if they had work comp.
Okay, why don't we get this covered off topic, off.
Yeah, I just want to stress, I don't think the idea was specifically work comp, right? It's just an example of things that we should really take another look at. Now that all the business systems have been refreshed and everything else, just take another look at our business license and say, what of these things could we reduce, simplify, eliminate? And just to help our businesses one more step if it doesn't affect the city.
Could not agree more. There should be nothing that's in there that's unnecessary. In the same breath, we want to make sure we're presenting what we are when we say this business is licensed by the city. So how can we take an action step on that, Kathy?
Well, we're going to add it to the legislative priorities list, Mayor, and then we will get on it. Yep.
Okay,
Thank you. The next item is City Workforce Housing Initiative, launch a city-led workforce housing strategy to define, zone, incentivize, protect, and track attainable housing production. Survey results showed strong interest in single-family homes, workforce housing, townhomes, duplexes, smaller attainable homes, and better neighborhood upkeep.
who brought this forward?
I think I added the majority
Okay.
of this one. So I think we all, without exception, at some time in our campaigns, have campaigned about workforce housing. And we've done some nice things in terms of LIHTC and the other things. But I think Taney County Partnership would tell you, as good as all that is, we haven't moved the needle effectively on workforce housing. Now, Branson's not alone, right? This isn't a Branson unique issue. But on the other hand, I feel unless we're going to actually define and manage a strategy to at least start getting us there, we can just keep talking about this on the campaign trail year after year, and nothing substantial is ever really going to happen. So I've been paying attention as I've gone to various conferences and things about some of the ideas that have been floated by other communities that may not exactly fit us and may not be the right answer, but at least it gives you some pause for thought. So for example, a common discussion is overlay zoning. So you have normal residential zoning, but then you have a special overlay zoning that pertains to your objectives for workforce housing. And by the way, just, I know these terms sometimes get loaded. For me, when I say workforce housing, I'm not talking about subsidized housing in any fashion, just housing that's affordable for our average Branson worker. When I talk to bankers about that, they say that's somewhere around $250 or less, or somewhere around $12,000 a month, whether you're renting it or buying it, somewhere in there.
Hopefully it's 1,200.
Sorry?
Hopefully it's 1,200.
1,200, did I say 12,000? Yeah, thank you. 1,200. So, and those numbers would have to obviously be massaged and made sure that they're accurate. So that's not the real point. The real point is, I think we as a city could say, look, we're going to put some effort, some time, and probably even some money into a real test to see, can we get a formula for workforce housing in Branson? And it's going to be a broad discussion, it's going to be a lot of ideas, but I think it's time for us to actually have a planning session to work on those concepts, to see if we could attract developers under the right circumstances to build the right kind of properties, and then keep those properties as workforce housing to make sure they don't fall into short-term rentals and all the other things that we're very good at in this city, which would be part of the zoning overlay and CCR&Es and other things that can be put in place. So the point here is just, let's set up an initiative where we specifically sit down and talk about what could we do, what are we comfortable in doing, and what tools that we have at our disposal to actually get going on this and not just campaign on it.
Okay, any other comments or questions on this topic? So Glenn, what would you see as an action item for this?
I think we could start with a discussion among the aldermen and maybe invite some of our builders in and say, what stands in the way of these kind of projects? You know, when you look at the city, what could the city reach in and touch that would make projects like this more affordable, more doable, you know, and just an open discussion. Let people throw things on the wall that we could consider as a city. And then I think we should sit down and seriously consider, are there zoning issues that we can do? Are there ordinance issues? Is it even a funding issue on part of the city? Maybe instead of developers putting in infrastructure in certain defined areas, we want to have the city put in the infrastructure to lower the burden on the developer, you know, as long as other conditions are met, and so on and so forth, those kind of ideas.
So that would start with a meeting with builders and developers.
Yeah, maybe a study session, something like that, and specifically inviting that community in, give them our objectives, and see what ideas they have.
Kathy, do you have any input on that?
I like this. I think additionally in that gathering of people, you'd want to have some municipal attorneys involved there too, because we kind of ran into a little bit of a snag trying to do something creative a couple of years ago, where we wanted to be able to designate a certain developer that wanted to come in and build this type of housing. And we said, well, then we wanted to put some sort of deed restrictions on there to make sure that the developer didn't just grab some freebies from the city and then turn around and, like you said, either their nightly rentals or, you know, what kind of things can we legally tie to the deeds. So we ran into some static on that, not to say it couldn't be overcome. But I think we as the city to embark on this, we're kind of in that somewhat right now with the community plan update. So housing is a huge component, and that's getting worked through with the consultants. And then to take that product to the next step, I'd really like to get partner in from the Taney County Partnership, because I'm trying to think who in staff do I have available to lead. This is a very big thing, right? Because it would touch so many different parts of the city government. I'm just looking at workload 26, 27 and thinking, I don't have somebody I can think of right now I could ride point on this, but I think partnering with, say, Chamber, TCP, other interested folks from the private sector, getting some municipal law folks involved too, potentially, et cetera. I think it's got some definite potential.
Yeah, I think I like that, and I think, you know, at least as a first go-around, we don't have to resolve everything, commit everything. I think it should be the typical, here's your Post-it notes, put them up on the wall, let's talk through them, and then we'll, you know, retreat and start working through specific issues and then reconvene. But I think we need a broad input from the people in the community that would affect this to say, what are the things that, when you look at city government, we might be able to help with? Give us the shopping list. We're not committing to it, just give us the shopping list and we'll dig into it deeper. I think that would be a very healthy discussion. And I'm happy to bring this up, if you'd like, to the Taney County Partnership, since I'm on the executive board there. Be happy to discuss that with them.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Okay, a little help here. Maybe the next slide.
We need a next slide, please.
The next item that was submitted was to rewrite the code pertaining to Alderman meetings.
Yeah, this one was submitted by me. So when I look at our current code, and I've said this for the last couple of years for the Alderman meeting, we've gone in and patched it several times, but really it has got a lot of ambiguous sections to it. It's discontinuous in terms of the different kind of meetings. It's just showing its age, frankly. And it's time, and I've offered to sit down with people and work on this. I'm not trying to throw this one at staff. I think it needs quite a bit of Alderman input to get it in shape. So I'm happy to take the lead on this, and I don't know that it's the highest priority, but I have the feeling that it's time to get after it, like so many of our other ordinances.
Okay. Alex?
The next one's an exciting one. Finalize and approve the new community plan, finalize the comprehensive plan, and tie future zoning, capital planning, grants, development incentives, and quarter investments to the adopted plan.
So how are we doing on that?
Well, we've engaged Half and Associates. There's been a number of CPC meetings recently. They've done a number of focus groups. They've done a number of, they're embarking on studies. And so, yeah, things are firing on all cylinders regarding the community plan.
So who brought this to the table?
It was me, Mr. Mayor. Yep. The goal here, obviously, a couple years ago, the board decided it was time for Community Plan 2030 to move on, and so that group commissioned this process. It went on a 12-month pause. We're back into our second meeting after that, and great opportunity to tie a lot of these individual items up because that community plan is going to help our planning department and our planning commission and this board. This board should only make, all these grand plans we're talking about here, individual legislative priorities should be tied to that community plan. If not, it's going to be disjointed and ineffective. So I think it's not out of line to say, hey, let's buckle in. And I believe HALF has already produced a timeline that would say it's not unreasonable to make this something that we would want to roll up in this legislative year.
2027, yes.
Okay.
The next item pertains to permitting reform. There's numerous provisions here. Eliminate permit requirements for minor inconsequential work, clarify, justify work requiring a permit and inspection criterion, contractor versus owner permit filing, publish clear permit checklists and inspection standards, and setting guaranteed review timelines.
Boy, I know that's a big one, and would that fall under, Kathy, would that fall under the building requirements that we have? Because I've never understood why you're going to change out a hot water heater, you need to pull a permit.
Yeah, I've had those same thoughts on several parts of our code, but I think that's part of when you adopt an international building code, you get a whole bunch of things in that soup. And so the city just for many years has just rolled with it. But yeah, I have to do a double take on some things that we require permits on as well. So these are all really, really great ideas, and I think it's a very reasonable expectation to set for us. I feel good about that. It's great.
So who can we assign to this task?
Well, again, we shall make it part of our legislative priorities, and then when we're doing our work planning, and again, it sounds like we're adopting all these, so Kathy's starting to have a little shortness of breath, just so you know. But yeah, we'll come back and sort through that as we go along through the end of the year and come up with a work plan and set realistic expectations on accomplishments.
If I may add, so this was really brought up by various community groups, and as I look at it too, as a business owner, I kind of say, yeah, I get it. As I understand it, for example, just to pick on another one, and there were one of the few area communities that require a permit to repave and restripe a parking lot. So those kind of things, I get it. We'll probably find it in our code somewhere, our adopted IBC and all the other codes, but that doesn't necessarily mean you have to permit it or inspect it, right? Because I don't think that's the intent of the code. So I appreciate the enthusiasm to look at these kind of things. And I think it's just another one that'll help our business communities in general, not just builders, but hotels, restaurants, everybody, just get through life a little bit easier and just, speed things along. So I think this is a great initiative.
Yep, and homeowners, for sure.
This is probably a multi-year initiative, just given the breadth of all the different codes. And so maybe a possible thing we can come back with is identifying maybe the top, 15 or so items in each category that seem to make the most sense to tackle this legislative session. And then we can start working our way from, top priority to more important but lesser priority items.
I don't like the comment, couple-year process. Did you say a couple-month process or a couple years?
A couple years. There's a lot of information to review.
Okay.
The next item is to declare blighted area on 76 Main Street off of 765, possibly reduce demolition permit fees to $1 and provide incentives to green up lots until rebuilt. You could cap rebuild permit fees to $10,000.
I think I put this one on here. I think it speaks for itself, put some real effort. I know we've tried some other things last year in this way too, but I think if we formally declare that area blighted, it gives us some latitude and some ability to focus. We could set up permit fee rate schedules for blighted areas, so that it's uniform, all those kind of things. But essentially, let's get after that entrance to 65 or off of 65. Once the 76th Street project kicks off these next two phases, I think there's going to be even more pressure to make that thing look good.
Yep.
So if we could start simultaneously on this, I think we'd be well served to do it.
Yeah, actually, there's, I think, a few things we can do to provide economic incentive. I would need some legal advice on that. Lots of legal advice. I know, for example, Taney County has some areas designated as economic incentive areas where they forego the percentage of the real property tax for X number of years. But we need to designate that area. So where can we get assistance on that? I think it has to start out as legal.
Definitely legal, Mayor. So when you say declare something blighted, that carries a lot of weight behind it, okay? So we got to remember people have property rights. The other thing is DOT is going to, I would imagine, factor into the conversation because they always do when we're talking about 76 and Main off of 65 there. And so there'll be some bureaucratic tape that we'll have to cut through on that as well. But I definitely understand the intent here, and maybe declaring something blighted isn't the right way to go once we dig into it a little bit more and find out maybe there's other opportunities there where we can designate it something else that would qualify for incentives. So I understand where you want to go here. And again, but a lot of these kinds of things take a lot of legal time, right, to be able to find out what our options are as a fourth-class city. But I see definitely where you want to go. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
let's also remember that we've sent this up to the governor for Opportunity Zone. And so number 21, we got a few more priorities added on here, which I had added, thank you, is to maybe see if we can get some lobbyist or somebody helping us have the governor, get favor with the governor to sign these as opportunity zones, so.
Okay.
The next item pertains to updating current ordinances regarding group homes and extended stays, update zoning, licensing, occupancy, inspections, and nuisance standards to protect neighborhoods while complying with state and federal law.
Group home extended stay ordinance. Who brought this up?
So we dipped our toe in this earlier in the year and then found out we really needed to take a broader cut at it to incorporate the federal laws and the state laws. And so I think this is just a note to really get back at this. And we can do the same thing with with extended stay ordinances to see how we want to handle that.
Yeah, and are you referring to, I know there was an effort at the state level to try to define the difference, or define, we have overnight stay and we have permanent residence, but the state does not address what we all call extended stays. And so we are prohibited, we had our hands tied on enforcing laws or doing things because this property we call extended stay does not have a legal footing at the state level. Is that what you're referring to, Glenn?
There may be a state component to it. You know, there's also federal issues on extended stay, even in the tax code that you can look at. So, yeah, I think I've heard this before, that the state needs to step up as well and clarify some of their language to address some of these things. And if we have a state component to this, I think that would be great.
Okay. Oh, Kathy.
Just to further add to what Alderman Schultz just said, we just had a meeting with some folks, and representatives from Baja were there, and we talked about this particular issue on extended stay, and I reminded them of our status as a fourth-class city, and we can't come up with our own definition of extended stay. If we were a charter city, we would have the flexibility to be able to do that, but we are really at the mercy of the state on extended stay restrictions, unfortunately, or fortunately.
Yeah, so these two topics really probably deserve to be split, you know, because while they go through the same process, they're really quite different subjects. I think we know what we need to do with group home for the most part. It's just a lot of work to get it done. And then the extended stay, we'd probably need some help from our state representatives.
Okay.
The next suggested item is the neighborhood parking ordinance to classify number of vehicles, type, length of times, et cetera. Adopt a neighborhood parking ordinance addressing vehicle count, commercial vehicles, trailers, RVs, abandoned vehicles, street blockage, and duration.
This one is mine. I think it speaks to itself. It's probably the most common discussion I have with constituents is parking issues like these. They're not as big of some of our other issues, but in numbers, they just keep coming up. And when I look to the code to help them out, it's significantly deficient.
Any other aldermen? Okay.
The next item is to strengthen local data center ordinances. The city adopted ordinances a few years back regarding data centers, but would love to turn that over to Alderman.
Yeah, hot topic. I just think we did a great job when we dealt with the issue of the crypto thing, which was a small version of this. I think soon we should probably just revisit that, update our ordinances to make sure we've got in place what we want to protect our residents and businesses should somebody come knocking. We probably don't have, as I said before, we don't have the geography for these mega data centers that we're seeing all the controversy about, but there's a lot of mid-sized data centers that could easily come to Branson under the right circumstances, bank data centers and others, and they have all the same characteristics. So I think we should just, you know, consider what we want to do ordinance-wise and get it in place before one of these applications shows up.
Okay, Glenn, I thought the language that you inserted in our existing ordinance was very well done and very tight. I think it would discourage people looking at Branson for data center.
Yeah, it is pretty tight, and thank you for that. But I think new things are coming up in data centers that we should also address. Because I'm hearing, for example, I went to these seminars that the state had put on, and I'm hearing that a lot of the noise ordinances on the really high-end data centers, they've really got it in control.
Oh,
Which is good, right? That's what we
Yeah.
want too. But then it brings up other issues, and we have nothing in our code for these other issues. And so I'd be happy to draft something if we find this to be a priority in the legislative list.
we could ask our state reps also if there's anything at the state level, that they're looking at doing. Okay?
The next item pertains to General Highway 76 revitalization. A couple ideas include execute current phases of the ongoing 76 CID project and to continue to expand the ECID, possibly segments 7 and 8. to encourage 76 to remain the city's top visible tourism corridor by addressing blight and underused properties by maintenance 76, 65, which we talked about, and then some other items regarding code changes to reduce demolition permit fees for redevelopment, incentivize greening of vacant lots, capping excessive rebuild permit fees, upgrading pedestrian crossings and safety, and lighting, landscape signage, and shared parking.
Well, I would like to think that this would be and remain a top item for our city. Yeah, we need to take this one very seriously.
Yeah, appreciate that, Mayor. That, I know it seems like it's an overstatement to make it on the list, but to not put it on there, I put Highway 76 on there. One, Ward 1 has a lot of it in there, and two, serving on the CID with you and others of the 76C CID, we got a lot of good things going right now. There's areas that are not in the CID that we've talked about here a little bit earlier, but that's our backbone. That's largely our identity as 76, and so just making it clear and apparent to everybody that that is a number one or up there priority for the city is our Highway 76 strip.
Yep, and as soon as we can get the bids in and accepted and get the construction going on phases 1 and 2, I was going to propose a couple things with our CID committee. And one is to start work, and I'm not sure what's next. Is it 4 or 4 and 5, the next phases? But in addition to that, the amount of time it takes to take properties and put them into the SID, I'd like us at the SID level to start talking about phases 7 and 8, because it does take a long time.
I think that'd be great. I know we've, the group up here has discussed that before, and it would be great. It just forward-leaning, and there's big opportunities there. There's lots of things that are important to us in Branson in 7 and 8, and so I 100% agree. We should be doing everything we can to be prepared, because it'll be here before we know it.
Yep. Okay,
I will caveat that annexation does take more than probably a legislative session to accomplish, so setting realistic expectations here.
Yeah, 100%. And that's why you guys are looking for an alderman to sponsor an annexation policy.
that's right.
The next item list pertains to tourism tax accountability, possibly reforming tourism tax accounting processes.
Who brought that up? Glenn?
I may have authored part of this, I think, looking at some of the wording. So I think it would be helpful, and I don't want anybody to misread this. This doesn't suggest anything nefarious or anything like that. I just think it would be helpful, given the amount of money that flows through those funds, to raise their overall transparency to the general public. Questions came up during the last elections that were a little uncomfortable. So I think we can just help everybody out if we say, okay, here's how much are in those funds, here's what we spent, and especially on the public project list, you know, a lot of great things get done there, but I think other than if you're paying attention during the budget season, you really don't know what they are. And it would be good just to have a list, both, you know, I know with a communications perspective, that would be one thing on our website, other places, just to make sure that there's full visibility to what's really happening there.
I'm not sure what to do with that. Okay, still don't know what to do with it, but we'll move on. So downtown and 76 gateway improvements.
The next item relates to downtown and 76 gateway improvements, prioritizing gateways, lighting, sidewalks, landscaping, public restrooms in both the downtown area and along 76. The downtown plan emphasizes enhancing the visitor experience, creating building investment, accommodating community events, and preserving authentic heritage.
Okay, who brought this up? Alex?
So I've talked about this a little bit, actually quite a bit, and it's a first image, or first impressions. You come to Branson for the first time, you're greeted by a less than enthusiastic metal sign. Then you pull off of Highway 65 into the 76 intersection where the I Love Branson sign is, and you get smacked with the most blighted portion of the city of Branson. So it's just finding ways to up our image, much like what Director Woods and his team did with the downtown. You see what happens, the wow factor comes on, people are impressed. What we're gonna do in segment 1 and 2 on 76, wow factors, it's gonna impress people. So it's just continually reminding ourselves that we need to think about Branson's first impression, or sustaining its image to people that already know us, that like, hey, we're continually saying this is important to us, and this is the Branson brand. This is what we're putting out on display, and I think that gateway monuments help with that. And then, of course, just all of our other public-facing areas where tourists are coming through. We don't want to be the, take a drive down 76 community and say, hey, look, that's where Jim Stafford's Theater used to be, or look at all that grass growing through that chain link fence, or that garbage bag on that sign. That's not the reputation we want to have.
Okay, any other comments from the board?
I'll just say I agree with this wholeheartedly. And I would even extend it. I had a discussion with Administrator Stepp. Even things now that great projects have been done, there's times where you got to just sit back and look at them and say, so what's the next level of improvement? How does a visitor see this? You get all tied up in the project and it gets done and it's great. But like downtown right now with the opening of the parking garage for 2 hours, free parking, the whole question of how does a visitor find that when they come to Branson? And those kind of things, I think this fresh look and looking at it from the visitor's eyes would help us a lot in terms of revitalizing our economy.
Okay,
Public safety, homelessness, and sidewalk access. Updates to the ordinances protect ADA access, sidewalks, business entrances, emergency access, public facilities, and tourism corridors while connecting people in need to services.
okay, who brought this up?
I would think we could check this one off. I think we did a pretty good job of this with the work that we did on the last go-around a few months ago. And so for now, I think we're largely there. I've heard very good comments from the downtown businesses where a lot of this focus went into. Very good comments. I continually get good comments. I was just in the Art Walk Committee meeting today, and even there they were commenting on how these ordinances have helped. So I think we can set that one aside for the time being if nobody objects.
That's great to hear.
Thank you. Childcare, healthcare, and 12-month economy, using incentives and partnerships to attract childcare, healthcare, outdoor recreation, trades, professional services, and year-round employers. Some shortages that identified by stakeholders include childcare, lack of 12-month employment, workforce issues, housing shortages, and quality of place projects as major needs.
Who brought this one up?
This is one of mine, Mayor. There's a lot there. So the idea here, I think of Matt Atkins and Taney County Partnership. It's just the city doing what the city can, whether that's through planning and zoning or through other creative processes to let us know that, hey, childcare is very much tied into childcare, healthcare, and the 12-month economy are tied into all the other things we talk about mostly, which is workforce or bringing businesses into town, because you're not going to get those things if folks don't have a place to drop their kids off, or or if we're continually not working towards expanding the 12-month economy. That's a huge multi-pointed item, so if it needs to go or we just focus on one of the many things listed there, I get that. I just think it's important to, particularly the child care piece, that we recognize and try to find a way to help plug into Taney County Partnership's efforts to recognize child care as a major contributor to workforce and moving into a 12-month economy here in Branson.
Okay. Next.
This is probably a duplicate item, but it was a little bit more in detail regarding rewriting meeting procedures, planning and zoning code cleanup, and alderman meeting reform. I don't know if anyone has any questions that might be duplicative at this point. Okay. The next item is 76 CID expansion. So.
Yes.
So as we're kind of going through a lot of these, I want to keep pointing out occasionally the breadth and the weight of some of these particular statements. So, I'm kind of like listening with an ear as city administrator of, at the end of the year, am I going to be judged on how many of these items I was able to accomplish in one legislative session? Or how is this legislative priorities list at the end going to be used, right? Is it laudable goals with some meaningful metrics that we can apply within reason, workload considerations always being at the front of that conversation? Because some of these are, for example, childcare, healthcare, 12-month economy. I'm an optimistic person by nature, but I'm not foolhardy enough to think I'm going to be able to solve these problems for our city, right? When they're countrywide, right, nationwide, some of these things we've got, and certainly region-wide. Same thing, P&Z code cleanup, that is a very broad statement that makes me start to have shortness of breath again, where I go, what parts of P&Z codes? I'm thankful that the Planning Commission has expressed an interest in being able to review a lot of those things, but I can't create another process which is outside the purview of the Planning and Zoning Commission, by the way, to start developing legislative initiatives. That's really not what they're authorized to do. So there's just a lot of spikes that could be coming off of any one of these particular items. So if you guys could just validate for me that I shouldn't be getting short of breath.
From my perspective, I don't want to speak for the other aldermen, but my understanding is this is a first look at a long list that's going to be pared down, right, and prioritized. And so from my view, there's a lot of great stuff here. And this is the first time for me as an alderman that we've actually gone through this exercise to hear what's on everybody's mind, which I think is fantastic. But obviously, we're not going to be able to do it all, no question. I think we've got to work through a process where we prioritize it both on the impact on the community and the effort that it's going to take internally. And somehow we'll have to find the balance between those two, but that'll definitely result in a paring down of the list and probably setting a bunch of them aside for future considerations, and maybe we make this an annual activity for the Board of Aldermen. But I appreciate all the thought that went into this by all the aldermen, because it's good to hear what's on people's mind and talk through it in a community sense too, so that the community can weigh in.
Well, I have similar concerns that Kathy had. I could see Kathy being judged on how many of these things she got accomplished. I'm looking at them especially the child care, health care, 12-month economy. To be honest, that sounds like more of it's on there for campaign reasons, but not on this list for somebody to be able to look back and say, well, I suggested these things and the city didn't do anything about it. Some of these are just over the top, unrealistic statements, in my opinion.
Mr. Mayor, if I
Yes.
could just say, these are legislative priorities for us to discuss, and we all know that the city does not have the exact answer for childcare. So I think what we're saying is we want to just make sure that we're aware this is a big piece of what will get us to a 12-month economy, and as we have a 12-month economy. But Alderman Williams very appropriately said that Matt Atkins at TCP is very much working on programs like this, and so it's really more of, hey, we support what our community partners are doing, and we recognize that these things are important. This is not something that we're doing a resolution on. We haven't, on any of these, we're not doing any of that stuff. So there's nothing to say, if you don't have this done by December 31st, you're in trouble, right? We haven't done that. So I think this is just a conversation that we can start figuring out what is important to us. And I really did like your idea of taking the first, like the top 15 of code priorities in each different areas and kind of figuring out from those what we can look at, what we can change. Like, let's start with some low-hanging fruit, right? Let's not overwhelm ourselves with great ideas that the aldermen have.
Okay, so
Thank you.
with that, it is 5:45. I'm going to suggest we suspend, what do we need to do? Close this, adjourn this study session, give the aldermen a 15-minute break before we start our 6 o'clock session. We have a motion?
May I say something? We've only got 3 more, and the last 3 we're gonna breeze through because they're already in process, and we can
I'd
just be
like to,
done.
I say we move on. So we have a motion to adjourn the study session. Is there a second? Okay, so then I will adjourn this meeting. We'll come back at 6 o'clock for our Alderman meeting.